Hello and welcome to the SACCO Insight podcast, where we are amplifying people's voices. My name is George Ombado, the Executive Director of ACOSCA. Welcome to SACCO Insight, where we are amplifying people's voices. Once again, today our conversation will be around advocacy and how to use the national associations and leagues to promote the credit union model, not just in the continent of Africa, but across the globe. We are delighted as a ACOSCA and a SACCO Insight team to have Caroline Willard, who is the President and CEO of Cornerstone League in the United States of America. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, George.
We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here and to get to see you and spend time with you again.
That's good. Your first time in Uganda?
First time in Uganda, not the first time on the continent, though, as you know.
Okay, so far, how is Uganda for you?
It's beautiful. I didn't know quite what to expect, but it's green and hilly and not at all like Dallas, Texas.
In the continent of Africa, at times we tend to mix advocacy, marketing, and I know you are a big advocate of supporting credit union model in US in the work that you do. How does advocacy fit into the credit union work?
I think it's critical that we always are advocating for an improved operating environment. I know that there are a lot of things that credit unions strive to do to better serve their communities, and if we don't push back when legislation or regulation becomes oppressive, then credit unions are limited in how they can serve their communities. And so a lot of the work that we do advocacy-wise is defensive, where we're pushing away constraints that are excessive. Of course, we believe in common sense regulation. We need guardrails to be sure that these institutions are operating well. But I think that there are times when that regulation or legislation becomes so heavy that they can't operate freely. They can't make the kind of loans that they want to and that kind of thing. So I think that it's constant. It's not just when we've got a specific thing we want to get done. We've got to constantly be expanding the boundaries of what's allowable.
It's interesting that you mentioned in your space you're advocating and engaging with the regulators to see that what they're doing makes sense and it's not excessive, while in our part in the continent we are more of encouraging regulation to build stability. But that perhaps can because your system is more mature. You've gone through different stages of development. What are some of the things that you're advocating for to support the community development in your space?
Yeah, as specific to community development, we had something happen recently that was a little bit of a scare, actually. We've got community development financial institution status established in the United States. And in order for a credit union to be called a CDFI, or community development financial institution, they have to be able to show that they are serving a community of modest means, communities of color, places where there's a definite need for low-cost banking services. And the scare that we had to do with the funding for the grants that enable that program. Because if credit unions apply and they qualify for that status, then they can get sometimes several $1 million per year in order to make loans, for example, to people of modest means in those designated areas.
So as a leader within the space and as the CEO and President of Cornerstone, you have many credit unions around you. At what level do they appreciate the value of advocacy?
Well, we've measured that, and annually we do a survey gauging or measuring all the different things that we do, and we force our members to assign points to each of the things that we do. We give them 100 points, and we say, you can spend these any way you want. Larger credit unions will oftentimes, they will assign as many as 75 or 80 of their 100 points just to advocacy. The larger ones do. The smaller ones need more operational support. And so while I still think the smaller ones appreciate that we're advocating for them, it's not what's at the front of their minds. And so we know that the larger ones expect us to be their voice, and they expect us, like I was saying earlier, to expand those boundaries for them and to get additional powers for them. But we have to prove it all the time that the value proposition is strong.
And I like what you're mentioning, that your value proposition is both for the large, medium, small, everybody within the space. How will you describe Cornerstone League in terms of size and what members you serve?
Well, we serve 5 of the 50 United States, and within those states, there are 640 institutions, credit unions, who belong to our association. And that represents many billions of dollars in US dollars of assets. And so we have about 45 institutions that are greater than 1 billion US dollars in assets. And so that alone is a pretty big group of large credit unions to take care of. And then we have about 400 who are smaller than 100 million in assets. So we've got a lot of really, well, that's not tiny.
That's a lot on your plate.
But it's a lot of smaller institutions, and they want different things, you know. So we've had to learn how to, as we say in the United States, we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have to have different skills for those different segments of our market.
Okay, so how do you navigate, ensure that the small might have different needs? How do you navigate that, and what are some of the unique needs of the small credit unions that differ from the bigger credit unions?
Yeah, the best example I can think of is having an expert on staff who knows about asset and liability management, rate setting, for example. A lot of times, smaller institutions don't have the level of sophistication in that area of expertise that a larger credit union would have. A larger credit union will have a dedicated chief financial officer, for example, and maybe a few people on their team who can do analysis to really understand the impact of the setting of their rates for loans and deposits, the long-term impact of that. Whereas smaller credit unions come to us for that. And so we provide good data, we provide modeling for them, and we can even do on-site consultations for smaller credit unions. The larger ones don't need that as much.
For the continent of Africa, you find the leagues also handle a central finance facility. While in your space, you have a league, but you also have the corporate, which in your space is Catalyst.
Yes.
Have you seen the value of having that clear distinction between corporate and the league?
Most certainly. I mean, on the most basic level, the big difference is that a corporate credit union or a liquidity facility equivalent, they're regulated. And out of necessity, they're regulated. We need to be sure that those funds that are on deposit there are safe, right? Whereas the association and all of our affiliates, we're not regulated. Certainly we have guidelines for good business practices, but that's a very basic distinction, and we think it's an important one, and it's a good reason for us to stay separate.
So it's better this way. And,
I believe so.
Yes. And we're hoping that as we engage with our leaders in the continent to have more of that separation. One of the things that when you mentioned that you're able to sleep better with the world that is constantly changing, and not just America alone, the world is changing. What troubles you or concerns you around the credit union? Any issue around the credit union?
The number one issue that we're facing right now is the threat of losing our exemption for federal income tax. And I think you know about this. And credit unions do pay lots of different types of taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes, depending on their charter. But for the duration of the current Federal Credit Union Act, we have been not-for-profit institutions that qualify for a federal income tax exemption. That's at risk right now. One of the things that's at risk is us continuing to enjoy the federal income tax exemption as Congress looks for ways to pay for the consumer tax credits. So it may blow over quickly, or we may be in for a complete change in the model for U.S. credit unions, and we don't know which way it's going to go right now.
On a positive note, what are then the opportunities that you might think might arise in all the crisis that is now the world is facing?
Yeah, I mean, there's that Chinese proverb about, risk, right? That there's equal opportunity and danger present. And so could we solidify some of the powers that are a little bit in the gray area right now? Like, for example, sometimes a bank, not a credit union, but a bank, will say, you know what, we don't want to serve this rural market anymore because it's not profitable for us. In some cases, credit unions have stepped in and bought the bank or assets of the bank or branches of the bank.
Wow.
And so that there will continue to be service in that rural area. And that ability to do that is challenged. There are a few states, Tennessee being one of them, where that's not legal anymore. Well, maybe in the course of us negotiating all of these other powers and our tax exemption, that could be something that we negotiate and say this is something we need to be allowed to do. Because if I don't want to even think of a world where we lose our income tax, the federal income tax exemption, but there might be powers that are associated with that where we finally get the green light that there's no question at the end of that sentence, can we buy banks? And then it'll be, yes, we can.
More often than not, some people think a bank is better. And I like your end game on that is to buy a bank so that you serve those who are being served in the bank.
Right.
So you convert them.
Right.
Yeah.
And make them members. And I know one of our members in Oklahoma had the experience where they bought a bank, but it was mostly because the bank did better commercial lending. They had a very mature commercial lending program. And so, yeah, I guess you could say in that instance, that bank was stronger than the credit union who bought them. But it instantly gave some expertise in commercial lending to that credit union. It got them up to speed really quickly, and so now they're better serving their market.
Okay. So what makes us then credit union unique compared to the banks?
We're still not-for-profit financial cooperatives. And even if we get additional powers, that doesn't change that essential model. I mean, there are people who remember when credit unions couldn't offer checking accounts. We didn't used to be able to do that. And so we have built up additional privileges over time. And I think now we're at a pivotal point where we might be able to prove that more of those powers can be added still.
Okay. Thank you. So this episode, our concern or the conversation has been around advocacy. So why is advocacy important? Caroline Willard has explained and illustrated to us how they manage to influence the credit union system using the advocacy by using that to serve members better. SACCO Insight is about amplifying people's voices. If you are to advise or talk to the world, being international in your cooperatives, you're talking to Africans, and because your message that you've had together now cuts across the world. What message will you give them, particularly on why credit unions should not be taxed in Uganda, in South Africa, in Ghana, in US?
Yes. So I love it that this is the International Year of the Cooperative, because the cooperative movement is so special, and it is literally people helping people, joining hands, putting money on deposit so that loans can be made out to friends and neighbors, and that's critically important. I believe that the tax exemption in the United States is important because every dollar that a credit union could be taxed is a dollar that they can't loan out to friends and neighbors. And so we need to continue supporting our communities. No one does that better than a cooperative. I don't care if it's an electrical cooperative or a cooperative for wheat farmers or a financial cooperative. This is neighbors helping neighbors. And it's unique, it's special, and we need to preserve it.
We've had Caroline Willard climb Mount Kilimanjaro with us, and it was to do with supporting the work that we're doing within the continent, and seeing you in this state and continuously supporting us and Cornerstone. You are just building more relationship. We are, of course, despite being friends, Cornerstone and African credit union system are improving. We'd like to thank you for being part of this SACCO Insight, and we look forward to engaging with you more. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, George. You're one of the great blessings in my life.
Yeah.